Hi everyone, I'm Alex Karifa and welcome to my text mining project presentation where I explore the public's perception of using social media as a tool for crisis communication. Social media has become a central force in global communication with over 5.22 billion users, roughly 68% of the world's population, actively using platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook. In crisis situations such as wildfires, pandemics, or terrorist attacks, rapid, accurate communication becomes crucial. Crisis communication refers to the process of sharing important real-time information to guide decision-making and keep the public safe. What makes social media so significant in this space is how it has transformed crisis communication. Instead of a top-down model where institutions release official information, social media has enabled a decentralized participatory model. Individuals, emergency responders, and organizations now share updates and coordinate responses in real time. This shift brings powerful benefits like faster alerts, increased public awareness, and community-driven action. But it also introduces risks like the rapid spread of misinformation, escalated emotional reactions, and the growth of confusion in distinguishing credible sources. At the center of this dynamic is the issue of public trust. For example, during Hurricane Harvey, over 6 million tweets were posted that supported rescue coordination and damage assessment. In contrast, during a false alarm in London in 2017, more than 480,000 tweets, many speculative and unverified, amplified public panic before the situation was clarified. So the question becomes, is social media a lifeline or a liability during a crisis? This project explores that question by using text mining techniques to analyze how the public talks about social media during emergencies. By studying these perceptions, we can better understand what builds or breaks trust in digital communication and what role social platforms should play in future crisis response. While the introduction highlights the promise and pitfalls of social media and crisis communication, this project specifically focuses on how those tensions are reflected in public perception. This analysis focuses on two dominant perspectives. On one hand, many people see social media as a life-saving tool. It's fast, interactive, and empowering. It gives individuals and communities the ability to organize, share real-time updates, and fill in gaps left by traditional communication channels. On the other hand, critics view it as a chaotic, unreliable space where misinformation spreads faster than facts and where emotional, unverified posts can overshadow critical updates. This divide reflects a deeper issue of trust versus skepticism. Do people believe what they see online during a crisis? Do they view social media as a reliable source or as something that complicates emergency response? My project explores these questions by analyzing how people express trust, distrust, and confusion in their online language, and how that language varies based on perception. The goal of this project was to explore how people feel about social media during a crisis and what that says about trust, confusion, and the overall reliability of information online. From this, I decided to focus on these main objectives: to explore how people express feelings of trust, distrust, communication, and miscommunication, identify recurring themes and language patterns in public discourse, and analyze how understanding sentiment in a way could inform more thoughtful, responsive, and trustworthy crisis communication strategies. This kind of analysis matters because perception shapes behavior. If people don't trust the information they see on social media during a crisis, even the most accurate and crucial information may be ignored. Additionally, this information can help further understand how different stakeholders like platform designers, emergency responders, and policymakers can improve to build more effective crisis communication systems that account for how people actually feel. I also think that it's important to note that while extensive research has been done on social media use for crisis communication, public perception seems to be an under-researched topic. To investigate these questions, I collected data from 4 main sources: news articles using the News API, Reddit posts using the Reddit API, articles scraped from both TechCrunch and The Guardian. I use keywords trust, distrust, communication, and miscommunication to make sure I captured both positive and negative perspectives equally, acquiring over 600 sources in total that related to the topic of social media and crisis. Here's a quick glimpse into my raw data, and here's a glimpse into my clean data. As you can see, I cleaned and structured the data so I could run through different text mining models for analysis. While my results reflected both positive and negative perspectives of using social media during crises, 5 key insights stood out that I wanted to share that help further highlight public perception on this topic. I'll briefly walk through and explain each finding. First, using association rule mining, I looked at how people discuss trust and distrust in relation to social media and crisis. I found that distrust had stronger, more frequent associations with words like don't and trustworthy, never and trustworthy, and good and trustworthy. This suggests that people often talk about trust even when expressing skepticism, pointing to internal tension in public sentiment. When trust was the focus, terms like build, key, and spread appeared, which may show that trust is viewed as something that needs to be earned or built and is not assumed. Leighton-Dirichlet allocation topic modeling revealed that public conversations around crisis communication extend beyond immediate emergency response. 2 of the 4 topics were especially interesting. Topic 1 included terms like Trump, emergency, power, and support, suggesting a political and governmental framing of crises. Topic 2 featured terms such as social media, AI, and misinformation, pointing to concerns about technology's role in amplifying or distorting information. These findings suggest that public perceptions of social media during crises are intertwined with broader concerns, including the spread of misinformation, the growing influence of AI, and the need for stronger oversight and regulation. The overlap between crisis communication and political or ethical concerns reflects a growing uncertainty about how platforms are managed in high-stakes situations. The Naive Bayes classifier was used to test how accurately posts could be labeled as communication, miscommunication, trust, or distrust. While the model struggled to distinguish between trust and distrust, which is likely due to more nuanced language, it performed significantly better on miscommunication, correctly classifying 42 out of 68 sources, which is shown in yellow on the matrix. This suggests that language around confusion and misinformation is often more explicit and consistent, making it easier for the model to detect, whereas expressions of trust or general communication tend to be more subtle or context dependent. Across all 3 decision tree models I tested, the word crisis consistently appeared as the root node. This indicates that the presence of crisis was the strongest predictor of how a post would be categorized, whether it leaned toward communication, miscommunication, trust, or distrust. In the most accurate and interpretable tree with a max depth of 3, posts with strong crisis-related language were more often associated with trust and communication, while those with weaker or vague crisis signals were linked more to miscommunication or distrust. These results suggest that visibility matters. When a crisis is well covered, people may be more inclined to trust the information. But when a crisis feels underreported or unclear, public skepticism and confusion seem to increase. Finally, the support vector machine analysis revealed a clear connection between language related to visibility and public sentiment. Posts that mentioned the terms media or crisis were more likely to be classified as positive sentiment, especially in the RBF kernel, where these associations were made most evident. In the decision boundary plot, red regions indicate higher media and crisis mentions tied to positive sentiment, while the blue regions represent posts with fewer mentions, often associated with more negative sentiment. These findings support the idea that visibility and transparency play a crucial role in public perception. When media coverage is strong and ongoing, people seem to express more positive sentiment, perhaps because they feel more informed and are therefore more trusting of the information they see. These findings show just how nuanced public perception of social media in crises really is. From emotional tensions and how we talk about trust, to the predictive power of crisis language, to broader concerns around regulation and media visibility, together they help draw a better understanding why the public is divided on whether social media can truly be trusted in high-stakes situations. At the end of this project, one thing is clear. The public is deeply divided about the role of social media in crisis communication. While some people view it as an essential tool for fast, transparent, community-driven updates, others see it as a chaotic, unregulated space that spreads panic and confusion. My findings reflect that dual reality. I found consistent public concern around miscommunication and distrust, but also strong support for using social media during crises, especially when platforms are visible, active, and transparent. Interestingly, conversations about trust were rarely simple. Even when people talked about distrusting platforms, they often still referenced the need for trust or the desire to believe in the information they saw. That emotional tension, wanting to trust but not always being able to, is something that both crisis communicators and tech companies need to pay attention to. I also noticed that when media coverage of a crisis is high, people express more positive sentiment. This suggests that visibility matters. People may feel safer and more informed when they know what's happening, and that trust can be built through transparency, clarity, and consistency. And while I focused on communication and misinformation, larger concerns kept surfacing, especially around government regulation, AI ethics, and the future of platforms. People aren't just thinking about the now, they're thinking about who should be responsible for making sure crisis information is safe, verified, and fair. So this means that social media can absolutely be part of a successful crisis communication strategy, but only if trust is taken seriously. That means investing in real-time verification, limiting the spread of misinformation, and designing better systems to prioritize credible, helpful content to establish a greater positive perception of social media. My project doesn't claim to have all the answers, as this project works with limited data and could improve on model accuracy. However, it helps offer a snapshot of how people are currently thinking, feeling, and talking about the issue of crisis communication. And these insights help further gain an understanding for the need of more thoughtful, people-centered approaches for being able to use and trust social media data for crisis response. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to check out my website to see the full analysis.